Is anybody talking? I'm just seeing if there's any sound.
I don't think anybody is talking right now. Yeah, but I
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay, good. All right,
You're
I'll
good.
go off my screen then for now. Thanks.
No problem.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and good luck. Have fun.
I'm excited about open mic night because
I'm very excited for this year's open mic night because
super excited for open mic night.
I'm most excited about this open mic event because
I'm really excited to see young, talented, creative Muslims express themselves.
this is going to be my first open mic night with my voice. And also, I'm very excited to see the many talented people who will be sharing their knowledge with us.
And see the young, talented Muslim and the important issues that will be discussed.
I'm most excited about this open mic event because I want to get inspired by these performers. I'm sure there's some great talent and some great performances that they're ready to show us.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. How are you guys doing? So we have a lot of people on here. And basically, I'm gonna kind of give you a little intro to set the tone a bit, right? So my name is Jabril. I'm a little bit of a guest here. I first want to thank the My Voice team for having me and all the panelists and putting on this wonderful event, such an amazing idea. And yeah, you know, it's nice because the current times that we live in, you need things like these to kind of still happen, you know, community events. And we're talking about such an important subject that has been much talked about over the course of this past year. And yeah, it's great to be here. So I'll also like to introduce my co-host. I don't know where I'm pointing.
Hi, my name is Malika. This is my first year working with My Voice, and I'm the admin or executive secretary. I was kindly asked to be a co-host or a co-MC for this, and I'm very excited for today's discussion. I think we'll wait like 2 more minutes. Hopefully everyone can trickle in by then. But yeah, we're really excited for today, and inshallah, everyone learned something, including me, and we have very inspiring discussions.
Yeah, so first, like a couple housekeeping rules while people kind of come in. So by now, I'm assuming most people are kind of acquainted with Zoom etiquette, you know? So we'd ask that everybody keep their mics turned to mute until it's your time to speak or present. Because, you know, this is the kind of event that we'd have in person, right? In an ideal world. So what I'd like for you guys to do after the presenters go, because, you know, they worked really hard on their presentations, might be kind of nervous, need some encouragement. You guys can either use the clapping emoji in the chat, or if you want to be a little extra, you know, you can just like clap like that. Just let them know that you appreciate it. Yeah, you know, this isn't necessarily, even though this is an educational thing, it's not necessarily a lecture. You know, you're not in school. You're here to learn. Hopefully you are here out of your own volition. You didn't get forced to come here. So if you are here like that, we really appreciate some full cooperation. And yeah, you know, we're really excited to get this started off. So let's see how many people we have there. People are kind of coming in still. All right. What we are going to start off with now is, of course, in any event, specifically a Muslim event, we will start off with some Quran recitation by Muhammad Ali and Fatima.
Start for us.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Excellent.
Can I start?
Sure.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. صدق الله العظيم.
MashaAllah.
Okay, so assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm just going to do the translation. O humanity, indeed we created you from a male and a female, and made you into peoples and tribes, so that you may get to know one another. Surely the most noble of you in the sight of God is the most righteous among you. God is truly all-knowing, all-aware.
Thank
Next,
you.
we want to, Jazakallah Fatima and Muhammad Ali. Next, we want to go into acknowledging the land that we stand on or sit on. And first, we want to acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and the Inuit peoples. And it's good to remain mindful of it throughout.
Yeah, you know, in an event like this, we always need to make sure that, you know, we acknowledge any of the difficulties of the people on the land and everything that's going on. And, you know, that's kind of represents how My Voice is as an organization. And a little bit about My Voice for anybody here that is new. It's a nonprofit organization by the youth, for the youth. I love that tagline. That's great. So they work to empower Muslim youth by engaging them in creative arts to elevate their voices and facilitate dialogue on issues that matter to them. You know, it's really important that we have organizations like My Voice to kind of amplify our voices. I know for myself, my first and only time actually writing an article was with My Voice, and it was about a topic very passionate to me. And yeah, so it's great to have organizations like these.
We also want to make sure you're following our socials so you can get more of the creative expressions and honestly, like the masterpieces that My Voice produces. So you should follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and both handles are My Voice Canada. And then we ask you to put your handheld devices away if you're not using them for this event, obviously. We want to make sure you're able to stay present and engage in our discussions. We also would like if everyone puts their cameras on, just so that we can talk to you, because hosting an event like this is so difficult because we're not able to feed off of the energy. So as long as we can see you, I feel like that will be facilitated.
Yeah, also, you know, we will be plugging the socials a couple times over the course of this event, because you know how it be, right? You need to get the numbers up. All right, so presenters, remember that you automatically are entered into a competition for prizes of $100, $75, and $50 Amazon gift cards for the top 3 presentation. I'm excited. You know, maybe I probably should have entered. I guess for diversity, you know, maybe. Okay. So those are some great prizes. We also are going to have some extra competitions and stuff later on in the evening. And yeah, y'all get excited. Make sure that you are present. Make sure you are paying attention, because that will come to your benefit later on. Okay.
And speaking of those extra prizes, we will be having a Kahoot game as well. And the prizes for first, second, and third place are $35, $25, and $15 gift card from Amazon. So if you're spectating like myself, make sure you pay attention. Also, before we begin, we want to thank Rising Youth, a project of Taking It Global, the Government of Canada, and Canada Service Corps for generously supporting this project. Today's awesome event wouldn't be possible without the funding from our grant. And if you ever want to host a simple project idea to support your community, Taking It Global is looking to support youth. So make sure if you're inspired with ideas, ready to take action, just apply for a grant on risingyouth.ca.
Yes, awesome. My cat has decided to join us today. She's ready to get educated. So, you know, right now, because again, this would usually be an in-person event. We all want to kind of get to know each other, get comfortable, because the issues that we're going to be talking about will get heavy sometimes, but heavy isn't necessarily a bad thing. So we want to make sure that we are creating a comfortable environment and a safe space for you guys to be able to express yourselves. So how we are going to do that is through some icebreakers. So, you know, 2020, am I right? It's just a lot, you know. We've all had a beautiful thing kind of happen to us amidst a lot of tragedy where we have shared experience amongst all of us. Like you can talk about Corona with anybody, and you know, it's just a great icebreaker all the time, conversation starter. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to ask a couple questions to you guys, and you guys can respond in the chat box, you know, get your fingers warmed up for chatting. And yeah, so the first one I'm curious to know is, did anybody learn any new skills over the course of, you know, quarantine? Personally, for me, I know I learned how to make some TikToks. You know, I had to jump on the wave. It just it's just necessary. And I also learned how to make that whipped coffee thing. You know, that tastes really good. I have to give help from my little sister because she's an expert at that. But you know, some cool stuff. So let's look at the chat and see what people are saying. Okay, so well, Faison learned how to clean a toilet. Now, see, I respect that. I can respect that because you know, that's manhood right there. You know what I'm saying? You're learning how to take care of the household. You know what I'm saying? Your mom don't got to do it anymore. Take care of that. That's great responsibility. Let's see what else we have here. Miriam Mendez says crochet. Okay, yeah, you know, I wish I could do that. I'd probably get frustrated within the first 5 seconds and quit. So I can respect that you actually stuck to it. Let's see what else we have here. Halima Ahmed said better writing skills. That's awesome. Let's see. I sharpened my ramen making skills. Now that's good because you see, I am also bad at making ramen and I should probably improve on that. Oh, we got a lot coming in. Okay. Let's see. I learned some Forex and coding. Ahmed Jama is you're getting your money up. Okay, I can respect that. Forex and coding, man. All right. Learned
I
how
really like
Frida.
Rams's answer, learn some duas, hadith, and useless pop culture. I totally relate to that. Both the duas and the pop culture.
Yeah,
Yakin Institute really came for us this year.
basically, right? Farida Burawa says, I learned how to de-stress and take care of my mental health. That's a great one. You know, it's been a lot over this last kind of almost like what's now like 7-8 months or something. Learning how to de-stress is great. Personally, for me, I just light a little candle, get my room smelling nice, and just contemplate and relax. You know, learned how to bake muffins. Awesome. Learned how to paint with acrylics. That's good. Learned what the settings on a camera mean. Can I use them? No. You know what? That's great. This is actually, it's a good time because we have a pause right now kind of in life, and it's almost like you can now catch up on certain things that you just kind of ignored or just, you know, pushed aside a little bit. So that's great. Zaim said learn digital design. You guys are learning some awesome skills. Okay.
Yeah, like my sister forced me to open like a vegetable garden and like rework the whole yard. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, this is great. So you guys are participating actively. That's nice. Here's another one, right? We're gonna get a little deeper now. You really have to think. Okay. So in quarantine, you know, it's almost like there has been a lot of pressure, and this is actually a great example that, you know, you have to become your best self, you know, saying you have to motivate, just do everything all the time. And sometimes it gets a little daunting for some people because, you know, people's circumstances are different. You don't know whether you are going to end up in a better place or worse place by the end of this. So what I wanted to ask you guys is, because we don't really know when quarantine is going to end, unfortunately, I'll say, let's say by the end of the year, by the end of 2020, is there something that you wish to have accomplished? It can be either personally, so let's say you want to be a better brother, better sister, something career-wise, school-wise. Is there something that you guys want to accomplish, a goal that you have set?
I want to learn how to cook.
That's great. Yep, that's a good one. That is a good one. Learn how to put IVs in someone without trying a gazillion times. See, now, right, I'm assuming that that's obviously a very difficult thing, so go easy on yourself. I wouldn't know. I only watched like 2 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, so you know, I'm not too.
I don't think being a real I don't know, like medical specialist is comparable to
right?
Grey's
Like,
Anatomy.
okay. Michelle says, I want to pass my unit courses. Yes. Yeah. You know, that would be nice. That would be real nice. Okay. Landing my first full-time job after finishing university. That's the goal, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, that can be difficult, depending on also what kind of field you're in. So I wouldn't personally recommend putting too much of a strict timeline on that, because I have a lot of friends who just graduated and they were very, very stressed out. So, you know, take it easy on yourself. Finish memorizing Surah Ar-Rahman. Yep, that's a great one. Personally, for me, I actually took some time to read the English translation of the Quran, just, you know, to get a better understanding, and I highly recommend that for some people. But yeah, you know, Surah Ar-Rahman, that's a good surah. Okay, what else? Finding a niche for an entrepreneurship idea. That's a good one. What I would recommend to help that is because I've taken some entrepreneurship courses, and what they always kind of say is make sure you are solving a problem, right? Not just kind of, you know, maybe smoothing it over slightly or providing an alternative. If you can come in with something that solves an issue that everybody has, man, you're good. You know what I mean? You can sell anything. Apply for university. That's a good one. That's a good one. Also, I would recommend that not to put too much expectation on yourself when going into university and when applying. You know, obviously everybody wants to get into a good university, but that's not the end all be all. You know what I mean? No matter what school you're in, you can always make the most of your situation, and you can succeed regardless, inshallah. And yeah, for anybody who's going into university soon, let me just say that I think one of the best things that you can do to prepare is learn how to be an adult. Like it's because a lot of things aren't taken care like issues aren't taken care of for you. You kind of need to solve a lot of this stuff on your own. And there's support systems and all that stuff like that, but really, like, a lot of it is up to you to schedule everything. If you have a long commute to class, you know what I mean? You have to figure all that stuff out. So really work on your adulting skills, whatever that means.
I just want to, as someone who's been an adult for a much longer than most people here, I would just like to say, ignore everything Jabril just said and just have fun, and you'll figure it out.
That too. I mean,
because the more you worry about adulting, the less fun you'll find in that independence and the wisdom and the growth that you're going to be on. So, you know, Jabril, it's really great advice. I'm trying to spice things up here. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of slow. But I'll just say,
as
like,
a grade 12 student, I'm very confused now. But
you know what though? She's right, because the thing is that I feel like with a lot of people, I'm turning 22 like next month. So early 20s is a bit of a mess, where you're trying to figure out what exactly it means to be an adult. And people, like, you have friends who are just having kids right now, friends who still can't leave the house without their parents' permission. You know what I mean? It's a very confusing time. And so I appreciate the hindsight kind of advice, because that's probably a lot more practical as well. Because see, I'm saying things like I actually know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. But you know,
Okay.
ain't that all of us, right?
So
These are fun times, guys. Enjoy them, inshallah.
Very.
Although, I mean, COVID, I didn't experience COVID, so that kind of throws a bit of a wrench in things. But inshallah, I'm sure that everyone here is resilient and will figure out, you know, the silver lining in the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, inshallah, let's get started. So I want to start off by introducing the wonderful panelist and, of course, NCCM, who's partnering with us on this event. We obviously wouldn't be able to go through this without our supporters and our people who work with us. So NCCM stands for National Council of Canadian Muslims, and they do a lot of interesting work, you know, highlighting the struggles of Muslims, but also any forms of discrimination. We have two representatives with us today, Asia and Amar, and I feel like they can go into a bit more detail about what they do and, you know, what we can do to help them as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so now we have a contest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so Asia, if you want to go
Oh, wait, sorry.
about kind of what NCCM is all about, then that would be awesome.
Sure. Thank you, Malika. Thanks for My Voice for having us, and Jabril and Malika, you're both doing an awesome job. Amara and I are really excited to kind of be in this virtual space with you all. NCCM, like Malika already noted, is an independent nonprofit organization. We work with Muslim communities and allies across Canada. So I'm the education and outreach person at NCCM. So my role is to essentially design and develop all of our training programs. And so one of my favorite parts of my role is to be able to work really closely with youth. And I can say firsthand, me and Malika got a chance to work together, and it was awesome. But it's one of the favorite parts of my job, to be able to engage with youth. We work very closely with school boards, and Amar does a lot of our advocacy work, and we'll be excited to share more as I guess the panel gets into it a little bit, but we're really happy to be here.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us as well, Asia. We have a couple more panelists here. One we already heard from. Her name is Amira Alkawabi, and she's a human rights advocate and is currently a contributing columnist for the Toronto Star. So we're going to be engaging her throughout the discussions. We also have Sana Ali, a boardroom member. She works at the Urban Alliance on Race Relations, and she's a racial justice advocate. We also have someone quite interesting with us today. His name is Ramz Aziz. He's a neuroscientist turned lawyer, and he is a tech community enthusiast, and he works with the community to organize like events. So we're very lucky to have such a broad amount of people with us here today that can help build the discussions on what we want to talk about today. And now Jabril will take over.
Yeah, okay. So it's contest time, guys. I myself am a very competitive person, and I appreciate that this is in fact a very real competition. Now for the presenters, do not get nervous. You know, there's quite a bit of people here. Everything's gonna be all right. It's gonna be fine. And so this is how it's gonna go down, basically. The people will decide who the winner is. We love democracy over here, you know what I mean? So we'll have the contestants go up, I believe 2 at a time. They will have 5 minutes to do their piece, spoken word, presentation, whatever it is that they're doing. And basically what I would like from you guys, this is active participation, okay? Get a piece of paper, get a pencil, you know, or use your phone if you don't have those, and write down your favorite contestant. Now, if you guys really want to get serious, I would suggest that you do a 1 to 5 rating for each of the contestants, so that you know you don't forget or you don't have any recency bias. because like, you know, if the latest person that goes, you know, like you think is the best one, you forget about the earlier one, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's what's gonna happen. So 1 to 5 rating for each of the contestants, and then write down your favorite contestant. Then at the end, we will gather all of the data on the voting, and we shall pick the winner. Now, as you guys can recall, the prizes are quite hefty, you know what I mean? Quite serious. So, you know, you guys come and think critically here, okay? You can go based off of the performance itself, you can go based off of the content, a mixture of both. I have some experience in judging, so what I will say to the contestants, speaking from 7 years of performing experience, take your time, don't rush through things. If you're feeling nervous, if you might be forgetting anything, pause, take a deep breath. It's all good. Even though this is a competition, this is a very supportive environment. There is no, even though we're judging, there's no actual judgment. You know what I mean? And also one thing to keep in mind is that what you are doing right now by performing, by coming up in front of these people, most people can't do that, right? That's a very rare skill, and mashallah is something that you should be very proud of. So yes, to all the contestants, you know, make sure you guys have a great time.
We also have, really quickly, we also have an extra special guest with us, an MPP named Khalid Rashid. He represents Mississauga East Cooksville riding in Ontario, and he's currently the chair of the Standing Committee on the Legislative Assembly. So thank you for joining us. In light of this special event, if you donate on myvoicecanada.com for more than $20, anything above $20, you will get a free t-shirt for this event. And if you donate more than $75, you will get a 1-year subscription to the magazine if you're in Canada. For our US neighbors, if you donate more than $100, you get the same. In general, make sure you check our website, myvoicecanada.com, for all types of articles and more information. Right now, worldwide, we are seeing a new wave of change when it comes to fighting for racial inequality. What do you think of this new wave, Jabril?
So yeah, you know, like I was saying earlier, it's been quite a heavy year, to say the least. There's been a lot of discussion on various topics in various communities and stuff. And when it comes down to, I guess, the topic of racial injustice, social inequality, and all that, in the Black community, you know, that's a topic that's kind of been talked about as long as I can remember, honestly. Whether it's Eid parties, family gatherings, whatever it is, it's almost always a very prevalent thing that you are kind of painfully aware of from a very young age, you know? And so speaking very honestly, although right now it seems like we have the spotlight on this issue, it's kind of a little strange to see that so many people kind of treat this as a new thing, almost like COVID, where it just appeared and all of a sudden people are racist now, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of not really how it's been. And so I personally am very grateful that we are able to now have this discussion so openly. I know that in the past, when people would try to bring it up, a lot of the times they might see you as being dramatic, especially in Canada and Toronto, where racism is prevalent, but it's not as obvious, right? So people almost always try to maybe gaslight or downplay whatever's going on. And, you know, we oftentimes find ourselves very frustrated by the fact that it seems like people don't listen and tend not to listen whenever we raise our issues, right? So that's where other groups come in to help us spread our, you know, our stories and our messages, and, you know, kind of help people learn from all our experiences, right? Because we can't do this by ourselves. And, you know, in the Muslim community, we're all one ummah, and, you know, we want to tackle things collectively, right? So one of the things that, and any question for the, this is a question for the panelists as well. One thing that I always like to ask when starting off things like this, it's a bit of a personal question. So if it's a little too uncomfortable to talk about, you can kind of just give a more of a vague answer. But when did you realize that we kind of lived in a racist society, or that racism was a thing? Personally, for me, as a African American, you know, we were taught that from the get-go, right away, that racism exists, police have issues, it's systemic, you know, all of this, right? However, because I kind of grew up in, you know, a nice neighborhood, loving parents, you could call it a very sheltered life. I was homeschooled actually all the way up until university. I didn't have much kind of firsthand experiences with racism, right? And personally for me, it was probably only until around the age of 14 that I actually felt it for real, right? And it's a very strange thing because you don't actually realize a lot of the time that it's happening to you right away. It's kind of something you have to unpack months or years later, right? And you realize sometimes you blame yourself and you think maybe I'm just a bad person by nature, or, you know, maybe it's something that I did or something that I said. And it's only until later when you get the extra knowledge that you then realize that, you know, it had nothing to do with you. It was the person's fault, or the person's, you know, mistake that they kind of treated you that way, you know? So it's interesting because people's experiences vary a lot. Sometimes their first experience with racism is right away before they're even taught what it was. Sometimes they're taught what it is and then only actually understand it years, decades later, right? So yeah, so right now I would kind of want to ask any of the panelists real quick about their experience firsthand with racism and kind of when that kind of happened.
Yeah, can I go?
Sure.
Okay, so just like you, Jibril, where I grew up in Canada, it's like a very multicultural place. And there were a lot of other people with my same religion, my same culture, and because it was such a mix, everyone, like, there was no discrimination. So in my home area, it felt like at home, you know? But the first time I really experienced a bit of racism, I think, was when I was 13. And it was when I went to Disneyland with my family. And so I enjoyed the park. It was very fun. But after we left, we just went to go do some shopping, right? And we went to one of the more, how do I put this, Caucasian majority areas. So I saw there was like a group of old ladies, and they were just, they were giving me like a bit of a stink eye. And I guess in a way, they assumed that I didn't speak English. So then I wondered, why would they think I don't speak English? And um, that's when my parents told me that they think that we might be some people from Mexico, and that like we don't understand English, which honestly I found a bit funny. And um, it was in a way like a bit frustrating because people didn't assume I spoke English, and then they were often just ignoring me. Like, for example, we went at the shoe store, right, to get new shoes. And I saw one of the employees was going up to a bunch of people asking, okay, do you need any help? Do you need any help? But for some reason, he wouldn't come with us. So my mom literally had to like force him to come over and help us. So yeah, but it did have some funny side effects. So this one Spanish woman, she actually came up to me while I was on shoe bench, and I think she asked in Spanish, "Is it taken?" But I don't speak Spanish, so I didn't understand. So then after like a couple minutes of her trying to say it in Spanish, she said, "Okay, I'll just say it in English," and then I finally understood.
Interesting. So, you know, that's that. It's very strange how that's kind of a universal experience amongst minorities, you know, like kind of that stink eye, that kind of weird, icky feeling that you get the way somebody treats you, right? It's something that's kind of very hard to explain. And I think that, you know, it's good that you kind of talk about this, and I think it's good. I don't really know how old you are right now, but it's good that you're kind of so aware of, you know, how that happened, because for a lot of people, like for example, I had a conversation with my father who's almost 50, and in the middle of the conversation, he kind of had this aha moment where he realized, wait a second, that was racist. And it's so strange how it's like decades later, and you just, a lot of times, you know, you don't want to be a victim, you know, so you will make excuses. You'll say, no, it was my fault, I did whatever, you know what I mean? And a lot of the times it's good to have that kind of awareness. So this is actually great, Faizan, that you spoke to me right now, because you are the contestant going up first. And you know, take your time. You have 5 minutes. Inshallah, you'll do great. And yeah, we'll hop right into it whenever you're ready.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
It's loading right now. Yep, there we go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hassan. I'm currently a high school student at John Fraser in grade 10. And for my presentation, I'd like to talk about today's racism in Canada. More specifically, the ones that have happened due to all of the recent events, such as the pandemic, the police brutality, and some of the droughts and all of that. Okay, so the first issue I want to talk about that we're facing is the water supply. And this issue is affecting some of the indigenous communities. So these communities for entire generations have treated water as a very precious and sacred resource, yet they are running out. Here in Ontario, we can just simply turn on a tap and we have a virtually infinite amount of water to do whatever we want to. But for some of these communities, especially the ones up north, they have almost no access to clean, safe drinking water. And many of these people are upset at the unfairness of who gets access to the water. And their wish is that it's shared equally amongst everyone. And you might be asking, well, if they live so close to, say, like the Arctic, why can't they just get water from there and treat it? Well, the thing is, they don't have massive industrial water treatment plants like we do here at Ontario. And the plants they do aren't really in the best of condition. Sometimes they can leave homes without any water at any time. And in 2016, Human Rights Watch documented the impact of prolonged drinking water and sanitation problems for thousands of First Nation people, and has detailed many crucial problems that the Canadian government needs to fix. Okay, so this one I'm sure you've all seen in the news a lot, which is the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, due to all of the recent police brutality and discrimination, the Afro-Canadian community is in a complete outrage over the unequal treatment of their race. And their main desire is for about $1.1 billion of the police budget, which may seem like a lot, but if you compare it to the whole amount, isn't really that much, to be redirected to those communities devastated by all of this police discrimination, especially to the families who've had their loved ones just taken away from them so brutally. And for many of them, just having Black police officers is not enough anymore, and they're calling it just the bare minimum. And here I have a quote from one of the protesters, which is, "The purpose of this propaganda is clear: to diminish the moral power of demands for racial equality and social justice." Okay, so the last main issue I want to talk about in Canada, which is a very recent one, which is the unjustified hatred towards the Chinese Canadians. So perhaps the ones who suffered the most from this pandemic and all of its after effects when it's gone are those of the Chinese and other Asian communities. Many of them are being treated as if they're more likely to spread the coronavirus, even though there is no scientific evidence proving that at all. And here I have a quote from one Chinese Canadian, which is, "Incidents like these remind me I'm not the same. All it takes is one small thing. That's how racism works. A lifetime trigger. You can ignore it, but it eats you inside. Okay, so the number one thing that we can do to help all of these issues is things we can do as an individual. So now I'll start off with things we can do to help the indigenous community. So saving water at home. The most powerful impact a person has is just saving water in their household. If we all conserve our water equally, then whatever is left that we don't need will go to others who do need it. And we can easily accomplish these simple things by doing very simple things, such as turning the tap off when brushing your teeth, running the washing machine only with full loads, and fixing any runny leaks in your house. And for the other issues pertaining to the Black and Asian community, I think the best thing we can do is to spread awareness on platforms like social media. Luckily, we live in a 21st century society where these kinds of racist practices are completely unacceptable and not tolerated whatsoever. Thus, by spreading awareness of these issues, we can make people more aware. And there are already several movements on sites like Instagram and Twitter. So by just simply following their accounts, you can make a big difference. Okay, now for the conclusion. In conclusion, although Canada has not been the most inclusive environment for specific communities, change is happening. In these troubling times, we are all terrified and pointing fingers at each other. Eventually, though, we need to realize that we are all in this together, that race should not dictate how individuals are treated. I believe that if we all pursue this change together, we can surely improve the lives of all Canadians for the better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Faizan. That was an amazing presentation. I hope the rest of the spectators were taking notes and making sure that, we were paying attention and noting key details down. I also want to introduce the next presenter, and I believe he's presenting something, Ahmed Jama. So take it away.
All right, Jazaka, thank you. I'm just going to present some spoken word. So,
awesome.
All right. So, you refuse to enter a masjid that is in your own. You wear a crown of arrogance saying, I'm not like them. What's the difference? Do you pray 5 times a day? Do you follow the same 5 pillars? You're just like them, but you refuse to enter their masjid because they're from another part of the world. Ask yourself this, are there more similarities or differences? And you know for a fact that there are more similarities. Even if someone came from Mars, you share the same solar system, the same sun, and most important of all, the same creator. You laugh and smile, not in agreement, but deep down, you know very well you wouldn't let your Black neighbor visit, or do you rather rent to someone who looks like you? You huff and puff, scream and shout, claiming you're not a racist, but your actions are very loud and clear. Even your own community, you can't stop your ignorance. You prefer lighter skin, soft hair, green eyes. Heck, you'll even go to someone's wedding just to have the audacity to tell the person beside you the bride was too dark. It's funny, honestly, because you boast of your ancestors kicking out the colonizers, but you want the Western beauty standard. It's people with your ideologies that make skin bleaching and Fair and Lovely make billions of dollars every year. You might be the elder of the community today, and you keep these backward things of the culture, claiming them as religion. But you may not listen now, but inshallah, the next generation will change this. That's it.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're really spitting there, boy. Okay.
And it's
All right.
the concept was amazing as well, because our next discussion will be about the systematic racism that surrounds us and how those different microaggressions, we don't really understand them. or we don't notice them till later, as we've mentioned before. So I want to call upon Asia and Amar from NCCM and ask them, as an organization, how would we deal with systematic racism, and how do we notice microaggressions, and what can we do?
Awesome. Thank you so much for the question. And Faizan and Emma, those were amazing, amazing presentations. I'm really looking forward to the rest of them. I'm really glad we're talking about microaggressions. And I think most of us have kind of already realized that we've all experienced microaggressions, right? We might not have recognized them in the moment. We might have definitely recognized feeling uncomfortable or feeling like we don't belong, feeling like we've been othered. But I think when it's recognizing those micro moments, we begin to see the way systems are shaped and the way systems operate. So, you know, similar to my own experience, you know, there wasn't any like particular moment where I was like, okay, this is that racist encounter where I'm like, you know what, Canada is a racist country. But it was like those micro moments that kind of built up to kind of shape my understanding of the systems. And oftentimes, you know, people would get my name wrong in school all the time, right? So, you know, a supply teacher would come in and I'd be so nervous because I knew she would get my name wrong and everyone would laugh, and I was super shy. So I would rarely correct her, right? Or him. And so it was those micro moments that kind of made me reflect a lot. And it was only actually in my second year of my post-secondary education in university, I took an equity studies course, and they literally, it just changed. It's like a huge shift happened, because I was like, all of that wasn't my fault, right? It was the ways in which our systems operate to make certain communities feel like they don't belong, that they're othered. And so that was like a huge, I actually remember like I had an emotional reaction to the lecture, and I actually left like in tears, because I was like, wow, like that's what systemic racism looks like. And I experienced it. It had nothing to do with me. It was the way our systems operate. And so I think asking those questions of ourselves is a really powerful practice in terms of, you know, who's controlling the narrative? Who is in charge of systems? Who's being centered? Who's being left out? Those are the kind of questions that I think if we begin to ask ourselves, it becomes less of an individual. We're not blaming ourselves anymore, but we're looking at how can we actually shift, disrupt, and change the way our systems are operating. And so I think just connecting kind of the micro to the systemic becomes really important, because oftentimes, as young people, even as adults, right, we think that we don't have a voice, we can't do anything. And I think the mandate of My Voice, which is fantastic, is to remind youth that they have so much power. And rarely do we kind of center the voices of youth in conversations like this. So even just having this platform is so important. So at NCCM, we do take a systemic lens to a lot of the issues, such as, you know, Islamophobia for sure, right? That's central to our work. But we also recognize that it intersects with so many other forms of oppression, right? So you can't, like, you know, there's a lot of people who, you know, say, I'm experiencing racism and Islamophobia, you know, xenophobia, sexism, all at the same time, right? I can't separate my different identities. As I enter a space, I'm going to experience all of them sometimes. They're all going to intersect because we're all so unique, right? And so the work that we're doing, that we're trying to do, and inshallah, you know, we need everyone's duas, we need all of your support, inshallah, is to really shift the narrative, right? We want to ensure that Islamophobia is not tolerated within our communities and in our country. And we're seeing it show up in a lot of different ways, right? So it could be our education system. Like I said, my main role is to work very closely within educational spaces to really shift that narrative, to make sure that teachers do have proper resources so that students aren't, you know, feeling like they have to represent the entire Muslim community all the time, or, you know, teachers know how to accommodate students. We're doing a lot around white supremacy right now, trying to fight hate, you know, things happening at our mosques, people feeling really unsafe. So there's a lot of different ways that we're intervening. through kind of federal government policies and practices. We're trying to shift a lot of those. We're looking at communities that are marginalized, right? Even within our Muslim community, and how we can support those. So there are so many ways to intervene and so many ways to advocate. I think what's really, really important is to kind of see where your strengths are and what you're interested in, and how you can kind of support whatever issues that you feel most passionate about.
Right. And we obviously see NCCM's impact, especially with the threat to the Toronto Mosque. Halima even mentions here that it shows Muslim as a strong non-victim light. And I love that. I feel like it takes away from the victimization and turns into activism. Like, how are we gonna start this conversation and ensure it doesn't continue, right? We also have another comment somewhere that says how, connecting to Ahmed's spoken word, is the internalized racism within our communities, within South Asian communities, towards different races, towards each other. For example, in South Asia, there's so many different beautiful cultures, and we see so much racism. So how can we combat that? How can we initiate discussions without becoming taboo or disrespectful, as a lot of people might point out? Asia, if you could.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question around, what it means to truly be an ally, because I think a lot of folks, like Jibril was noting, right, anti-Black racism is not new. Black communities have been facing it for as long as Canada has been Canada, right? So I think it's really important for us to recognize that, yes, the discourse has changed right now. The discourse has become elevated in the sense that we are talking about it. But as allies, I think we need to start kind of looking at, I think it starts with, looking at our power and privilege, right? These are kind of some of the terms that are becoming more normalized in day-to-day conversation. Like, I've had dinner table conversations around anti-Black racism and what allyship looks like, because, as someone who's from the South Asian community, anti-Black racism is very much entrenched within our communities, right? And I'm being very transparent about it. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality. And so I think we have to really look at what can we do to be accountable, right? How do we actually support, ally meaningfully with communities who need us most? And I think a session like this is so timely because of kind of the increased attention on some of these issues right now. So it really is a call of action for us as allies in terms of how do we actually support the work that Black communities are already doing and have been doing forever, right? So what can we do now? And I think it's really, really important for us to start reflecting on that if we haven't started that already.
That was great, thank you. Yeah, I think one thing that you said about, when you're talking about microaggressions, and you're saying how sometimes people don't know how to pronounce your name properly, which is always, I feel like, a universal experience. I think one thing that this is actually a question for everybody in the audience. If you guys ever go to any kind of restaurant where you have to put down your name, so say a Starbucks or something, right? Do you have a Starbucks name? My Starbucks name is actually Jay, because I keep trying to say Jibril to people. They don't get it, man. They take too long. You know what I mean? I'm just like, let me save myself the trouble to say J, like JYA. But it's kind of like you understand why you would want to do something like that. However, I feel like we should be proud of our names, right? And it shouldn't be a situation where Jibril isn't that hard to say, guys. Come on, like, you shouldn't have to necessarily settle and try to make yourself conform in ways that aren't very practical, right? So yeah, just a little addition there. Did you have a Starbucks name?
I initially did, and it was kind of just whatever I felt in the moment. So
okay.
But then I kind of was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna make them spell my name and say my name. So it became like an act of resistance. But it's tiring, right? It's really, really tiring to have to do that. So yeah, it was kind of depended on where I was going. Yeah, sometimes I was Zara, like Mashal was noting. It really depended on whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Funny and kind of sad, but a little bit of both, right?
I like the way she spells her name too, because some people who spell it Asia, they're always Asia, right? So.
Like yeah. Oh man. Okay. yeah, so I feel like also in terms of on the topic of microaggressions, a lot of times, I mean, they're called microaggressions for a reason. They're very small and it's a little hard to identify them, right? For example, for me, a microaggression that I always kind of had, and this is again very micro, but it kind of grates on you a little bit, is when if you were ever in a situation, if I was ever in a situation where anybody would kind of compliment me, right? It's like, oh, you look nice in that picture or whatever. For some reason, they would say, oh, Jabril, you're looking very light skinned in that picture. Nice. And I like it'd always be something where I'm like, okay, why is that the compliment? I don't understand. Like, but they're complimenting you. So it's like you're not gonna blow up in front of them. You know what I mean? You gotta like, it's a compliment. So then over the years, you post something on Instagram and people are like, oh, look at him. He's looking nice, light skin today, light skin, whatever, right? And I have siblings who like my older sibling, he's light skinned, like a lot lighter than me, right? And whenever people would kind of talk about him and stuff like that, it would not be in the same way. You start to notice differences. And with microaggressions like that, it kind of plays on your mind a little bit and drives you a little crazy because you have to always kind of consider, is it you or is it them, right? Am I just sensitive? You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting, that kind of thing. So I had a question for you was, how often do you face microaggressions in your day-to-day?
Me, Jabril, or everyone?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I would say like very frequently. I feel like it's a day-to-day experience. And they're funny, like kind of like what you noted. It's they're kind of wrapped up in what seems to be compliments, right?
Yeah,
So it's almost very tricky to kind of even unpack some of what's being said. So I remember even just when I'm speaking sometimes, just based on simply how I look, like people would come up to me afterwards and say, hey, like, I didn't know you'd be able to speak English like that, or I didn't know you'd be so articulate. And so they're kind of wrapped up in what seems to be compliments. And so I think microaggressions are such an important thing to talk about because they're so entrenched in our day-to-day, right? It's I think in conversation with young people and just in general, folks kind of, it's sad, but some folks have just kind of let them pass. Like they kind of, it's so normalized now that it's kind of becomes a part of their day-to-day experience. And I think it's in those moments that allyship becomes so important. So it's not you who has to constantly be having to kind of disrupt or kind of engage in educating people around some of those misinformed comments. And it's even like body language. Like I've noticed being in an elevator and someone from a particular community enters that elevator, and I've noticed people shift in terms of, like they're holding their purses a little closer or they're moving away. And I'm like, that's telling a story, right? That tells me a story right there. So it's even in those minor, those very simple actions are also microaggressions.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. It's interesting how when you have a conversation like this with somebody, it's almost like you open up your collection of microaggression experiences, like, oh, you have that too. Oh, I have that too. Oh my God, look at that. Yeah, that's wild. Anyway, so I think one piece of advice I can give for people when dealing with microaggressions is to make sure you tell people about how you feel. Make sure you express yourself and let them know that that comment makes you feel some type of way, right? And when you talk about your experiences with people, they can actually let you know, hold on a second, they're not supposed to say that to you. That's not okay, right? If you just go inside your head, you can always rationalize everything, right? Especially if you're that person who hates being a victim, like myself, you'll rationalize everything and you don't want that to happen, right? Okay, so thank you, Asia, for talking to me right now and talking to the people. And yeah, we learned a lot, and hopefully you guys all learned a lot as well. So our next panelist is Amira. So if you can come on up here real quick, we will have a discussion. So one of the things, Amira, that I kind of wanted to talk to you about was, I know you are a human rights advocate, right? And real quick, sorry, I can't see you right now. Just where are we looking at right now? Oh, there we go. Okay, awesome. So I know you are a human rights advocate, and that that title kind of, it's a lot, right? It's like human rights is such a important thing. I mean, you know, everybody needs them. It seems like it's kind of a never ending fight. And so a question that I kind of had for you was, being in your line of work, right? Do you ever get a little jaded, a little pessimistic when it's almost like you're exposed to a lot of evil that kind of is in the world, right? So how do you kind of, in the face of all that you kind of have to deal with and you have to see people deal with, kind of maintain a somewhat positive outlook on life?
Okay, well, assalamu alaikum formally, everybody. Thanks so much, Jibril. It's a very thoughtful question, and I've really been enjoying the discussion and presentations so far. And I think that that's a great question. Before I get into it, I just want to acknowledge that I'm in Ottawa right now. So I'm actually coming to you guys from the unceded, never surrendered Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory. And it's very important for all of us to always acknowledge the lands that we are on, because not acknowledging it is part of the systemic oppression and systemic racism, unfortunately, that has been unleashed on our Indigenous brothers and sisters for centuries. So just wanted to start there. In terms of how to stay hopeful, well, I think that number one, alhamdulillah, like as a proud Muslim, you know, our faith teaches us to be hopeful, that, you know, even if the day of judgment is upon us and we're in the middle of planting a tree, we are instructed to continue to finish planting that tree. So I cannot change the outcome of I cannot change the outcome of the world. I cannot change the outcome of anything. All I can change is my reaction to what's around me. So that in and of itself, alhamdulillah, is such an empowering attitude when we think about it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator, is not going to ask me, you know, why was so-and-so racist to you, or why was such and such an oppression happening, but will ask us, what did you do about it? How did you respond? And the number one way to respond, of course, is with love, with compassion, with understanding. A lot of people will act out in ways that are based in their own ignorance. They don't know better sometimes. Sometimes they do know, and sometimes it does come from a bad place. But I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt and assume that it is coming from somewhere that is ignorant, and that should the opportunity present themselves, and maybe in my interaction, this is the opportunity to demonstrate to them why their behavior is inappropriate and harmful, and provide them a way to educate themselves to do better. So in that in of itself, that's a very empowering attitude, alhamdulillah. And I will say that many instances where we come up against issues of systemic racism, while it's often a very long and arduous struggle to get systems to change. Systems are very difficult to change, I will say, especially, for instance, the education system, where many of you are probably experiencing a lot of the, and I don't want to call them microaggressions. I tried to put that in the chat. I think that, if I may, I think that the term microaggression in of itself is minimizing what we're going through and what people go through.
That's so true.
It is a form of racism. You know, when people refuse to learn your name, that's racist. When people say to you that, oh, you look lighter in that photo, that's racist. It is making a judgment about someone's value that is based on their race, and that's wrong. And it's racism, pure and simple. So I don't like to give people kind of an easy out. It's racism, and I'll explain, this is a racist thing that you've done here. And I know you probably didn't mean it, but I need to explain to you how it made me feel. So, so I think that, you know, as we are trying to change systems, that takes time, takes a lot of work. And a lot of times people, you know, don't necessarily want to put the work into it. But individuals themselves, you know, I think that if we, you know, as we engage with people in the day-to-day, you know, inshallah, if we act in a way that is dignified, that is kind, that is, again, compassionate, you know, hopefully we can help change hearts. And even if we don't change someone's heart completely, what we can do at least is make sure that they will respect us, right? I remember once hearing a scholar say, I don't need people to love Muslims, but I do want them to respect us. I want them to see that whether they agree with our way of life or not, it's not, that's fine. That's up to them. But they should respect me as a person worthy of respect, first and foremost, because I'm a human being, but also because I'm bringing a lot here. I have a lot to contribute, and I want to be provided the opportunity to contribute in society. And so racism gets in the way of allowing people to fulfill their potential. That's why we're against it. We're against it because it means that not everyone in society is given the opportunities to do what they can to better themselves, better their lives, better their families, better their communities. And ultimately, it hurts all of us whenever someone is not allowed to go forward and is held back. So even with COVID right now, we see there's a disproportionate impact on, certain communities, racialized communities that are not having the same opportunities as others. And so if we don't take care of everyone, all of us will be impacted. And to realize as well that many of those frontline workers who are racialized, often who are women, they are often doing the work that keeps us all going, keeps our society going. And yet often they were invisible before this pandemic. And now we are aware of them, but will it change how society views them? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful what you said about just now about not realizing the workers, the nurses, the teachers, people who do as much, but they aren't recognized in our society. And I think I also want to bring in Rams because I think we're a bit behind schedule, but he focuses a lot about where systematic racism is in the workforce. And I hope that you can, Rams, if you could touch on that, like how can we see it and how can we kind of tackle it, right? Yeah, take it away.
So I think, yeah, again, this is such a broad topic. I feel like, of course, you could have multiple halaqas about this, right? Inshallah. But Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's interesting because when you're working at any workplace, you have a certain, rights and responsibilities that you owe to the employer and the employer owes to you, right? For like kind of a safe workspace, a kind of accommodating workspace, a workspace that gives you the opportunities to reach your potential as was described, right? And so it's interesting because when you see yourself as an agent in a workplace, do you think that you have a agency to make the decisions that you would, and B, do you have the opportunity to actually act upon them, right? And so you're not operating in a bubble. There's personal factors, there are interpersonal factors at your team level, and then there's organizational level policies, right? So all these three levels can make like a pyramid, right? And they all layer up. And that's why it's so easy for workplaces to just pass the buck around, right? Because they're like, oh, we have organizational policies in place. Look, we have a diversity policy, we have a diversity statement on the website, right? And then, and so they say, oh, that's an isolated incident, right? And then so everybody's trying to, pass the buck, blame it, or deny it, right? So I guess you have to think about your own role in the organization, right? Is this a temporary position for you? Like, are you just passing through? Like, what kind of, because it really matters. Context matter, right? I can't just give you like general advice on anything, right? So it's interesting that, you may have a system, right, that basically perpetuates certain privileges and certain benefits and rewards, and it distributes them, it sprinkles them in different ways, right, to different people. And even no matter what your level is in the organization, you will see this, right, with your own eyes, or you'll feel it, right, in the way who's getting more time on break, right, who's getting, right, like who's getting access to, right, like just little things like, oh, for example, I was doing a job once, I was a barista at a coffee shop, and for some reason, I was always getting the job to clean the toilets. Right, and so I love Fazan's joke about that. Right, I'm pretty sure, I'm the expert now in this. Right, it's so funny because it's because I'm a color person, staff. I don't know, maybe, but again, so that's a very isolated example, right? Of again, if you would bring that with my employer, we're like, oh, of course not. I mean, it's just a operational issue, the staffing issue. There's all kinds of issues you could blame it on, right? So you have to be aware. There's what you hear, and that's what your gut tells you. So always listen to your gut. Never doubt yourself, right? Because your antenna, I'm sure, are very sensitive to how not only you're being treated, but also your colleagues are being treated, right? And you also see certain divisions.
Sorry, just to give you a bit more direction. You said you wanted a little bit more direction. So I feel like you touched on, let's say, work promotion. Okay, yes. I might not be, but someone with blonde hair, blue eyes might get the promotion. So how do I identify that without seeming petty? Because I think that's a big thing too. So that's a case that you can talk about.
Great example. And actually, this is where a lot of workplaces fail, is right? Because on purpose, they don't have systems by which they actually solicit or monitor even these sort of sentiments among their employees at a water cooler level, at a formal feedback level, right? When you're not a water cooler, I mean, like, you're just talking, you're talking to your colleagues about, hey, I'm noticing that, this person X is spending a lot of time with the boss, or like person X seems to, really know what's happening before we do, or like, person X, seems to, so like, so what's so different about me and person X, right? Or like this person. And so that's, yeah, and that's harder to detect, right? It's harder to put your finger on. But if you do see it, there are different ways you can perhaps bring it up in a way that doesn't seem like you're just doing it for yourself, right? Because obviously that's not your intention, and that's not why we're here as well, right? So yeah, some of the most effective ways to do that is to just basically seek to listen and understand first. To actually make sure you're actually right in what your antenna are telling you, right? Because fine, maybe there is something that you're not seeing, right? There's a lot of back end going on, how businesses are run. There's a lot of context behind why decisions are made. So don't jump to conclusions, right? I think I would probably start with that, right? Like, Allah alam, God knows, right? We don't know what's happening, why it's happening, but you have a reasonable supposition to believe that things could be better. So approach it from that mindset, right? So, and the other thing I would have is recommend is having like that abundance mentality, right? Because, for example, when you approach an object, approach a problem with, things a certain way, a common pushback you might hear from your superiors or from your other colleagues is that, okay, if they were to do this, then how could they do this for everybody, right? And this is, very common. Like, this is almost like number one reason like organizations don't change. It's like, oh, if I were to enact accommodate this person, I got to accommodate this person, I got to accommodate that person. No, like, so that's a constriction, resource constrictive mentality, right? And so that has to change, number one, right? So when you're presenting, when you're trying to like seek to understand, kind of seek by asking questions, right? Like, for example, I'm noticing that things are this way. What do you think about this? Or what do you think? Am I wrong in this? Or like, how do you, how have you felt about, this sort of phenomenon, right? And try to get to see how people rationalize it in their own minds, right? Because people might have very different explanation, right? So
get them to see the issue and then talk about it.
Exactly, it's a framing issue, right? Like, so like I don't know what glasses they're looking at the world through. Like, oh, this is completely fair because that's how it's always been, or whatever, right? Like, whatever reason it might be.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, so I guess that's how, I don't want to be too long-winded on this. We could talk hours, but like, that's essentially how it would start with those two mentalities, and kind of get them to also reframe their mentality towards their abundance mindset, right? Like, for example, there's a very common story about a person on the beach, right? The starfish, like there's a boy on the beach or a girl on the beach. There was like, like the starfish were coming in, whatever, creature, jellyfish. And like, so this person was lifting up the jellyfish or starfish and throwing it in the ocean, right? And so like an old person comes, right, and says, why are you wasting your time putting these starfish or jellyfish back in the ocean, right? And then the boy or girl says, I could help this one, right? So start with one, start with it, and then eventually you can create a system that helps everybody, right? But it won't happen if you're just having that mindset that nobody. What's the point, right? So that's how I would frame it.
Sana, I also wanted to talk to you really quickly also about this topic, especially since you specifically deal with hijab issues within the workplace, any type of, thank you so much, by the way, Rams, that was really well put, but also kind of what can we do as people, like what can I do to make sure that A, I'm seen, B, how can I also aid other people that are discriminated? How can I aid my Black colleagues? How can I aid people that are of other ethnicities, but they get passed over for scholarships or other types of promotions because of their ethnicity, right? Or we see like a lack of people of color within high places of doctors or medical specialists. Like we often don't see them. So how can we tackle that as well? What's your perspective?
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me here today, and for the discussion that's happened before, and to all the panelists. Yeah, that's also a huge kind of question to tackle. But I mean, like, it's true that I think, and the data and statistics and research all show that Islamophobia and systemic racism impact different Muslims in different ways. So it's largely the Muslims who are embedded in like faith-based spaces, who are the ones who experience the most discrimination, who wear visible symbols of their identities, and who are identifiable as Muslims, who will experience Islamophobia most severely. And so, for example, there are studies that talk about how Muslim women in the workplace become particular targets for some of what Rams described. So hijab-wearing Muslim women are often held back in the workplace from advancement, from opportunities to network, be put in front of stakeholders to learn, experience professional development. And that's also been consistent with my experience in many workplaces. Oftentimes you'll be given duties, like Rams pointed out, that are not, that are seen as menial or as less desirable for other people to take on. I think that there are several like redress systems, and I think in my experience, and I'm sure Amira and NCCM, the folks from NCCM can speak to this as well, the Ontario Human Rights Code, the Canadian Human Rights Code do lay out very specific rights and responsibilities for different entities. So whether that be your employer, whether that be a school, whether that be like a service provider, there are very specific rights that you have when you're accessing services or being employed by them. And so I would encourage everyone to go ahead and maybe visit those websites and see what kinds of rights you have. I have personally had some experience navigating the Ontario human rights system as well. And it does, I mean, there are ways for you to have your experience, what are termed microaggressions, but which are actually experiences of systemic discrimination, be recognized in that system as, because they cause damage. So within the legal system, you have to be able to, I'm sure Rams can speak to this as well, but you have to be able to prove that you experience damage. And so oftentimes it's what Asia described about feeling out like an outsider in the workplace, feeling invalidated, feeling like you don't belong. And those are really important feelings for you to like, those are difficult experiences for you to have because they lead to loss of confidence in different settings. They might lead to your, feeling like you don't belong, and like it could lead to mental health issues, severe mental health issues, physical health issues as well. So I think that's one of the ways that I would say you have access to it's a very punitive kind of way to go about it. But that's one system. And then another system or approach that I would advocate for is sharing your experiences with like other coworkers or people who are in your network who have knowledge about these things, and sharing those experiences with them and asking them for their advice. And I would say that like in the past, we've used campaigns. So when a system is very clearly discriminating against people systemically, Amira can speak to this as well, but we've used campaigns to be able to address that. So I think even just getting the word Islamophobia on the map, for me personally, has been quite difficult. And other folks on the panel can probably speak to this, but like in 2017, when the Quebec City Mosque massacre happened, there was this huge pushback from governments around, especially particular parties and elected representatives around using that term. And so part of my work has been to get that on the map, to get that recognized. And so I've done some work with the Urban Alliance on Race Relations, alongside elected representatives like MPP Rima Burns-McGowan, to have a Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia recognized at Queen's Park. And that was done in a collaborative way through a campaign with over 100 community groups and elected representatives from across Ontario, and individuals like Amira supported that work as well. So I think that's also another avenue for people to pursue. And then finally, in terms to address your point about how we can go about building connections and with other groups who also experience discrimination. Yes, it's important to recognize that we're not the only ones who experience discrimination, and systemic discrimination actually, it stems from there's been a lot of theorizing on this, but it stems from colonization and white supremacy impacts anybody who doesn't conform to the norms of white dominant culture, to whiteness. And so where do we start? I guess I would look to, like, there's been a lot of allyship work, and the work that NCCM and Urban Alliance does relies on the work that came before of Black communities across Canada, as well as Indigenous communities across Canada, because those are on Turtle Island. Those are the first, I think, communities that experienced systemic discrimination. And so I think for us as Muslims, and for myself as a South Asian Muslim, it starts with recognizing that maybe we don't have those relationships to start with, but there needs to be trust and there needs to be understanding on our part, because we can't assume that we have the same challenges. White supremacy impacts everyone differently. So I think I would say start by educating ourselves. And so I had the opportunity on the heels of like the Idle No More protests and, the TRC recommendations being released in 2015, I believe it was, to organize an event with an elder who was interested in engaging with settler Muslims and having a conversation about, where we could start. And I think that those kinds of forums give us a lot of feedback on how we can engage on the issues going forward. Because I mean, for instance, Indigenous people aren't like, there's a power dynamic between us as settlers and Indigenous communities as well. And we want to make sure that we're recognizing that. And so, for instance, inviting people into a space where it's predominantly Muslim and where their experience isn't understood is not a healthy environment for them necessarily, right? They're probably going to experience some form of discrimination there. So it starts with us, I think, educating ourselves. And then when we're in positions of power or we have some say over how things unfold, it's about taking that feedback from people who experience white supremacy differently and trying to implement it. So for instance, when I was working at the City of Toronto, for instance, if there was feedback from another entity or group, it would be about how can we translate that feedback into policy, or how can I translate that feedback into addressing their problem in a way that works for them. And that helps to build trust. So once you have successfully done that, you have trust with members of that group, and you can then start to work together, is what I would say.
That's a great point. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. That was very informative. Thank you to all the panelists who've spoken so far. You guys have given us some great insight. And inshallah, anybody who's attending this event has also learned a lot. So unfortunately, Amar could not be here to speak today. So I'm actually going to introduce him and then kind of talk about what I would have discussed with him. So basically, he is a Somali man, so Black, dark skin, and it's interesting because I feel like in North America, we all kind of get categorized as Black, right? Like this is Black, you're just Black, right? Regardless of whatever. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people don't fully understand how vast the Black community actually is and how diverse we actually are. And that kind of reflects in the way that people talk about our issues, right? So when you say the Black community, right? And let's say, for example, I've had this conversation a lot when, you're talking to somebody about it and they're learning about racial injustice and inequality and all this stuff. Not for the first time, but they're starting to get more informed, and they will kind of come from this approach of, well, it's been going on for so long and you guys are in position of power. The president of the United States was a Black man at one point. How have y'all not figured this out yet? You know what I mean? Like it's a weird kind of condescending approach that they have to the topic. And what I feel like they're not understanding is the fact that the Black community right now is made up of people from all across the globe, from multiple different religions and different ways of life. And you're kind of asking us all to come together and figure something out based off the color of our skin, which is meaningless, right? Like it has no actual, like you, even within the Black community ourselves, and people from South Asian descent can kind of speak on this as well, with colorism and the issues there. There is a lot of divide amongst the Black community when it comes to colorism. One fascinating thing about kind of the way that we are perceived in the world is that basically it's this concept of purity and kind of impurity, right? So when we're talking about white people, it's from a purity point of view where you have to be 100% white to be white. If you add 10% of Black, then you're not white. And that doesn't make much sense because with the Black community, you have people who are like 15% Black and they're Black. And like, so we just accept everybody. And so when we kind of have this, when our community has been formed in this way, and people kind of expect us to solve everything so quickly and kind of come together, it shows kind of a lack of understanding on what actually makes up our community, right? And so one thing that I kind of wanted to talk about real quick and just kind of leave you guys with some practical knowledge that you guys probably something you experience day to day, right? Is I want to talk about the N-word real quick, right? I know, ooh, right? It's interesting because, you know, the way that the N-word and the Black community and stuff like that is perceived is very tightly woven, right? Like in the Black community, we are in positions of not necessarily power, but popularity, right? So you have all the popular artists and the athletes and this and that, ooh, we're everywhere. And so people will kind of look at that and be like, well, how does racism even exist? If, like, people say this all the time, right? How is America a racist country if the president was a Black man? How is the UK a racist country if one of the most popular artists in the country is a Black man? How, you know what I mean? And they do this kind of thing. And it's interesting because the way that people kind of treat the Black community when it comes to stuff like this is almost and really it's dark and it comes back down to slavery, but we are here to serve you guys, right? That's what it is. We will dance, we will sing, we'll score all the goals we want. Kawhi will hit the shot, you know, to send the Raptors to the championship, right? But at the end of the day, that's all we are, right? We're just here for entertainment. That's how people perceive us, you know? So when it comes to kind of like things like the N-word, everybody's kind of aware right now at this point that it's a racial slur. That's not like something that people, most people know this by now, right? It's very common knowledge, but yet you still have, especially in brown Arab communities, you know, a lot of people still saying it. And it's so fascinating to kind of see how they rationalize why they're able to say it. So let's say, you know, you have Egyptians, right? Egyptians are African. Egyptians are African as any other African, right? But are they Black? Some will say yes, some will say no. They'll pull out the color card and be like, does the skin tone match the whatever? But then I have family members that are lighter than Egyptians, but are Black, right? So it's you can't really base it off of that. And so people kind of look at the N-word and think, well, everybody in the Black community gets so offended by it, right? How have you guys just not banned it from all music and all whatever? If no one's allowed to say it, why are people saying it, right? And what they're not understanding is that people, let's say with rappers, right? They are speaking on their experience, right? They are choosing to make music that reflects their reality, and maybe in those communities, people say it all the time, so they're gonna use it in their language, right? I myself am not in those specific communities. I don't necessarily relate to that. So you can't go and say, well, Drake says it, Kendrick Lamar says it in his rap verse, so I can say the N-word to you all the way across the continent because they said it, right? That's not necessarily how it works. So one thing that I kind of want to leave you guys is really, because it's, okay, speaking very honestly, there are probably some people right now in this discussion piece that have probably said it before, statistically speaking, is very likely, right? And I myself, in the past, when I was more of an ignorant youth, have given many friends the N-word pass, right? Because they said, oh yeah, bro, just let us say, be cool, like it's almost like we'll accept you if you give us this, right? Never stopping to think and ask, wait, why do you want to say a racial slur, right? People will say, oh, because it's cool, right? Because I want to be perceived as cool. Let me tell you something real quick. Never in the history of ever, and I can say this very confidently, okay, has a Black person seen a non-Black person say the N-word to them and thought, yo, that guy's kind of cool. Wow. That guy's kind of sick, that has never happened. That's just not true. If anything, you look lame and like you're trying way too hard, right? Like, that's just how it works. So for any of you guys, any of you young people out there who are in high school or anything, and you have friends, or maybe even yourself are struggling with this, it's understandable. Societal pressures are a real thing, right? But please, 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 please try to think about beyond the fact that, it's a racial slur. Try to think about why it is that you want to say it, or even be associated with something like that, right? Like people will go to one Black person, right? I've been the token Black person in a lot of, and right now I'm talking about the Muslim community as well. I don't even know a lot about outside of that. This is the Muslim community in masjids, right? They'll come to you and say, yo, listen, you are our one friend who is Black. I feel like you can give us the pass. Can I have it? Right? And I'll be here like, yo, man, I don't know, it's kind of uncomfortable. I don't really want to, but you're cool, right? Like, you let us have it, whatever. And I'll be like, I don't really want to, right? And eventually kind of get peer pressure. And what will they do? They will then take that pass and then we'll say it in front of whoever and anybody, just outside, right? And so here's a couple wrapping up, because we're kind of a little short on time right now, but I'll wrap up really quickly. And I just want to leave you guys with a couple questions that you can ask yourself and ask your friends, because I'm pretty sure we all know somebody who has this issue, right? This is number one. Do you think it'll make you cooler? Right? I can answer, no, it won't. Trust me, okay? It's not gonna do that. Number two, do you think that the person that you're asking to say the N-word, or the person you're saying the N-word in front of, is in a position of power, or are you abusing your position of power? And positions of power can be, I am the friend, I'm a part of the friend group. They want to be accepted into the friend group. You have to do this for me, or I can do whatever I want because I know you need friends, right? Things like that, right? Acceptance. People need acceptance. It's human nature. And sometimes they will sell pieces of themselves in order to get that, right? Number three, please, please, please understand that the Black community does not have a council hidden somewhere in Compton or wherever, where we decide Black people things, right? Where what counts as cultural appropriation, what skin shade is Black and what's not Black. We don't have a rule book, people, okay? We are a very vast community from multiple continents who speak multiple different languages, practice multiple religions. There's no ruling, right? What you need to go off of is, I guess, common human decency. And also, you need to go off of knowledge that you gain from talking to people, right? Ask them. If, say, for some reason, you have a friend who is complete, and this people exist. There are Black people who are completely fine with anybody saying the N-word. They don't care. It's whatever. That's their choice, right? However, you should be able to see that and be like, okay, he says that, but I know that he doesn't speak for every single Black person. Why? Because we're not a monolith, right? We are a community, but we are not some kind of hive mind. You know what I mean? So then you go and you ask another Black person, you ask another, and you ask another, and you get all of their experiences, right? And this is the key thing, where one thing that I want to kind of touch on in terms of how you can view the Black community, right? Think about how we talk about white people. You ask them, where are you from? They'll be like, I'm from France, I'm from Germany, I'm from this, I'm from that. You know the cultural differences between English, French, German, whatever. That's a very small area in Europe. And yet, if I were to say, well, I'm of Jamaican descent, and then you would ask somebody, oh, where are you from? And it's like, oh, I'm from Nigerian descent. How much are you able to tell apart between their experiences, what you can and cannot say? In East Africa, right? Some people there will use the N-word to talk about Black people in North America, right? That's something that happens. So you guys need to kind of be a little more aware in terms of who you're talking to, ask questions. We are not all the same, and we are not all just Black, right? Yeah, so that was my little piece. Right
No,
there.
I love how you touched on being empathetic and really understanding like the roots of different slurs, and in particular the N-word, especially in the South Asian community. We have a lot of people where I live in Scarborough and Toronto, where they think it's like cool, and I'm just rapping, or I'm like a Toronto man, or Scarborough man's, I think it's called, or whatever. And they say all types of word, and it's not acceptable, and it's racism, to be honest, if we don't kind of touch on that and talk about it. We're gonna speed through to our next contestants. Obviously, with the discussions as broad as this, there's bound to be a little shortage of time. So I appreciate if everyone can stay a little bit, 10 minutes, 15 minutes behind. So what's going to happen is we're going to have 4 contestants right now. I'm going to be reading them. And then we're going to have a quick 5 to 10 minute Q&A where the audience will directly talk to the panelists, ask any questions and any specific things that they want to talk about. And then we have 2 more performances. Inshallah, we have a Kahoot game, and we should be done by 2:10 latest, inshallah. So next we have the contestant, Sophia. I'm going to read all 4 of them, and then in its order, and then I will talk about the presenter. So we have Sophia Malek.
Real quick. Just a quick announcement. The event is being recorded, just so you guys know. And we would also just like to let you guys know that we would like to share your performance pieces and share your work on whichever platform. Just to let you guys know what's happening, and also too, because it's being recorded, if anybody is not comfortable with having the camera on, you can turn it off. It's completely fine. But just quick disclaimer.
Yeah, thank you. So we have Sophia Malek, Onas Shabazz, please correct me if I pronounce your name wrong, Farida, and then we have Halima Ahmed. So we are very excited for your presentations, and I think we're starting with Sophia Malek.
Applause, people, applause. We need applause. Everybody, we need applause. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So I'm just going to start. The purpose of this poem is to affirm God's justice and to set out the requirements that follow from it. To that end, the poem provides that your overstay has weight based on 4 principles. Number 1, the separation of state from stewardship long thrived through an imperial whip. Number 2, the traditional supremacy of the state, caging Black and Native bodies inside its freights. Number 3, the equality of all those we alone consider citizens. And number 4, freedom from conscience and freedom from religion. In addition, this poem amends the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to specify that persons must maintain proper regard for their fundamental freedoms. The provisions of this poem can never prevail over any subsequent act of God. This poem should be interpreted as affecting the brown, Black, Arab, Muslim, and Jewish elements of Quebec's cultural heritage that testify to its history. This poem has effect despite certain provisions of an act respecting the laïcité of the state. Thank you.
MashaAllah, that was really good. I like that. Okay, so guys, keep in mind that you guys are the judges, right? The people will choose. So make sure you write down what you need to write down, the names of the contestants, the score that you give them. We're gonna treat this very seriously. It's basically the X Factor. Okay, no, I'm kidding. All right, so our next contestant is Onizish Shabazz. Again, I feel like I'm butchering your name, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, would you like to come on up?
Hi, sorry, my camera isn't working, so my
That's
camera
completely
won't be
fine.
on. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I wrote a spoken word about Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. How many hearts do we need to shatter before putting behind this disgusting chapter? Judging someone by one look at their skin, when in children's books we are taught to never judge a book by its cover? I can't breathe. A person's skin is looked at as a threat. Just one look and your minds are set. Your hand on the trigger looking at the figure, one shot and they're gone. I'm just an introvert. I don't have a gun. How could you kill someone in broad sun without the fear of being caught? We live in the land of justice, but when it comes to justice for the murders of over thousands, everyone just happens to be silent. I can't breathe. We live in a world full of disease. And no, I'm not talking about COVID-19 because racism is deadlier than COVID-19. I'm talking the hatred towards Black people for a factor that they can't control. Have you ever put yourself in their shoes for just 1 second? Something as simple as going out for a walk is something that many would die for. To fight for justice, we march, you shoot. We kneel, you shoot. We riot, you shoot. We were not born racist. We were taught it. See, since the beginning of time, they have been slaves. And now in the 21st century, the new and improved century, what are they? Still slaves? They are slaves of poverty, the slaves of social media. They're the slaves of mental illness. I can't breathe. Walking down the street is scary. Hearing a knock on the door, I feel the angel of death knocking. I know once I open that door, my life will be doomed. The media will make some sick story about how I was ill and abused. They'll play themselves as the victim, saying I was holding a fight, when in reality, I was just trying to fight for my life. Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Mashallah, that was great. Real quick, how do you pronounce your name? I think the people need to know.
It was fine how you pronounced it, but it's pronounced Unzish.
Unzish. Okay, thank you so much because I totally butchered that. Yeah, okay. It's completely different. You don't gotta be nice. That was bad. Oh man. Okay. All right. So our next contestant is Farida. You want to come on up?
Alaikum, everyone.
Round of applause, everybody. Applause, people. Applause. Okay.
So the piece that I'm going to be presenting is just really reflective of the times we as Muslims have had to try to defend our reputations when it has been threatened various times by people who just simply misunderstand us. So I'm gonna start.
Awesome.
I've tried a million times to have a talk, sit down and explain, use 1,000 examples and comparisons to help them understand who we are and who we are not, what we believe in and what we do not. But time and time again, I find that we are back to square one, my words never reaching anywhere, confirming my fear that we will be misunderstood. We will always be told that we don't belong here and that we should go back to where we came from. But how do I tell them that right here is where I came from? Right here is where I belong, for I may no longer be welcome back there. How do you explain to someone that what the media portrays you as is false? How do you explain to someone that you are not all the same and that each of us are shaped by our cultures, experiences, and lifestyles? How do you explain to someone that you don't spend every single second of your day plotting to kill them? How do you explain to someone that you aren't all that foreign from them, that you breathe the same air, speak the same words, listen to the same music? How do you explain any of this? You don't. Try as you may, your words won't get you anywhere, so we must show them who we really are in all of our entirety, with no filters, no labels, no boxes to be ticked off, no images, no portrayals, no places to be filled, just Muslim, just us, because I can't be me without being Muslim. The two are inseparable. And so I'll let my actions do the talking for me since they're no longer listening. And honestly, maybe they never were to begin with. I'll let my actions speak on my behalf when I can no longer explain, when it starts to feel like I'm talking to a brick wall. I'll walk the talk in the hopes that they'll finally see me and not this false image that they've constructed me out to be. I'll teach the speech and practice what I preach in the hopes that I will be understood. And maybe, just maybe, they'll finally open their eyes and their hearts to the truth and disregard the falsehood that they accept as a reality. And we can finally do away with this calamity that has only brought about ruin. I'll put on my best behavior to prevent being labeled as extreme. I'll show them what they want to see, even if it may be this far-fetched image of me, if only to be treated like a human being, like someone whose presence is acknowledged and seen, if only to escape the scrutiny. Because truthfully, I'm out of options. And so we'll walk the talk, we'll march along to the tune we sing, and then maybe, just maybe, they won't hate us as much. Thank you.
That was beautiful, mashallah.
Oh man, that was great. Yes. All right.
You guys are really coming for that prize.
I'm saying, man. See, I was thinking I could enter in and just, maybe I would have lost immediately. Anyway, the competition is too good. So, again, keep in mind, guys, that we need you guys to vote. Make sure you're keeping score. Make sure you're writing down the names. Yes. All right. So now we have our next performance is Halima Ahmed. You want to come up on here real quick? Yeah, applause, guys, applause. This is not online, we're in person. Applause, we need hands, thank you. Okay, whenever you're ready, Halima.
Jazakallah. I'm sorry for the dingy lighting. This is the only place in my house with good Wi-Fi, so
that's fine. That's fine.
So today I'm going to be performing an op-ed that I published. So it's definitely not really an art piece, but something that I published in a magazine, and it does touch upon, I guess, some controversial subjects, you could say, and more importantly, stereotypes. So please keep that in mind. It's titled, How Do You Get Someone to Unlearn Racism? We have all seen the video or heard about Jacob Blake, the unarmed man who was shot at by Kenosha police in broad daylight with his 3 boys present at the scene. Whether you believe he was a potential threat for leaning into his car or deserved the shooting for not cooperating with the police, 2 of the many ignorant reasons people refuse to take this seriously, you cannot deny that 7 shots to his back was an overstatement to his alleged foreseen threat. When the news started to broadcast more about this incident, an older adult relative of mine made a remark, you could say. What did this guy do now? The police would only shoot him if he did something wrong. I sat back in shock. How could someone I know, and more importantly, love, say something like that? How do I respond to them without being disrespectful or further exasperate their internalized racism? What do I even do? Shortly after that incident, I reflected not only about the statement made, but my own response to it. I cowardly replied, "You can't say something like that. It's wrong." Whilst I was so vocal about my own anti-racism and colorism on social media and was quick to recognize my own prejudices, I didn't have the words at all to speak to somebody my senior. Then I placed myself in their shoes. Whilst living in Canada, a multicultural and democratic nation for over 2 decades, my relative was strategically presented with how certain minorities behaved in society. My understanding of minorities differed from them because of my diverse exposure to people of all colors in schools and social media and all of that. The white Canadians are at the forefront of political and corporate leadership. So these were the stereotypes I was talking about. The Asians and Arabs like ourselves are labeled as hardworking, making up the healthcare workers, engineers, and service workers, and to this way are still labeled the modern minorities for our success. Indigenous Canadians are rarely recognized, appearing to live distant lives on their reserves, and usually the only time Black Canadians are seen on the news is coupled with a crime. I know this is harsh, but for many immigrants, this is how Canada is presented to them. Ask your own mother, your own aunt, or even your own cousin. This is the issue that manifests due to a lack of representation. The way a minority is presented in the media or their prominence in leader positions in general becomes synonymous with every member of that group. And trust me, as a Muslim, I know that all too well. Black doctors, First Nations educators, and female CEOs do exist, but the lack of exposure to these individuals limits their value and, more importantly, recognition in society. So here I was, ashamed of how I respond to this remark and also confused about how this incident could be avoided again. Maybe I could provide a rundown of the reason the incident happened or why people are so angry about it. How do you change the way people view an entire group when for decades they were only taught things one way? How do you get someone to unlearn racism? Jazakallah, everyone.
MashaAllah, that was amazing. Thank you. Yeah, that was a really, really important subject that you just touched on, because I feel like a lot of young people can kind of relate to that right now, because we have a lot more access to the internet, and so education and learning about other people's experiences is a lot more accessible to us than it is maybe for the previous generation, right? And so kind of learning how to have that dialogue with people that you have a lot of respect for and that you should maintain respect for, but still try to educate them a little bit, right? So it's a slippery slope to kind of handle. But yeah, that was a great piece. Thank you. So I believe we have a couple more performances.
Yeah,
Right.
I think we're going to take a quick break from the performances, and we're going to engage the panelists again. And this time it's your chance as the audience, as the spectators, even presenters, to ask questions. So put your questions in the chat box, and any panelists, so that's Amira, Sana, Rams, Asia, and yeah, I think that's it, to answer those questions.
Can we actually have them go into breakout rooms right now and do individual 5-minute questions, come back and continue another 5-minute discussion with everybody as to what was happening in the breakout room?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Okay. It was going to go or not?
Oh, sure. I thought we cut that out just now, but that's
yeah.
fine.
Smaller groups, I just felt would be cozier and better for asking questions, and then come back with the whole. Is that all right?
Sounds
yeah,
good.
that's true.
Okay, so I'll be just putting you all there. Please accept the invite.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, my my discussion just kind of ended halfway through the thing, so that's fine. We will now be doing a little bit of a group discussion piece. So I guess I can go first, talking about what my breaker group discussed. We discussed privilege and kind of identifying that, right? So for myself, yeah, no problem.
Hey, so sorry to interrupt you. We're nearing 2, so can we just ask if people have to leave at 2, or whether they're okay to stay?
True, yeah.
Do any of the presenters have to leave before 2, or does anyone have to leave before 2?
I'm gonna have to sign out, everyone, but I've thoroughly enjoyed this this event, alhamdulillah, and I have sent my votes. I haven't been able to see everyone, but what I've seen so far has been amazing. It's a very hard decision. I've also put my email address in the chat if anyone wants to reach out. We had a great discussion in our chat group, and mashallah, there was a lot of questions, and so I just want to be available to anyone who has any questions about their career, about what the things they want to explore. Please consider me a resource. And just thank you to My Voice for organizing this and for inviting me to participate. It's such a great initiative. And I'm so hopeful, more hopeful than when I started this discussion, because you guys are amazing, mashallah. We're in good hands with this young generation.
Thank you so much for coming.
I wonder if you can do our 2 contestants and then the Kahoot game for all the people who stick around in the end.
Yeah, sure. So real quick, before we kind of get into that, so yeah, so if anybody has any time constraints, something like that, it's okay, feel free to leave. We will now get into the second last 2 contestants, so we can get that out of the way real quick. Keep in mind, guys, your vote still matters.
Not that we want to get you guys out of the
No,
way.
no, not that. No, that's not how I meant it. That's not how I meant it. So it's just we wanted them to perform with as much people as possible. If you guys have to leave, please make sure that you put your vote before you do, so we can at least kind of count that up. So next on the performing list, if we can have Amina Attar come up and do their presentation. that would be great. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me here. So please and blessings be upon everyone's angels and on everyone here today. My name is Amina Tar. My pronouns are she and they, and I've been invited to speak on environmental racism. Now, a little bit more about me and Envir Muslims, as I've been immersed in the work of climate justice for over 2 years, and I recently started working with Envir Muslims. Envir Muslims is a community group aimed at engaging, educating, and truly empowering Canadian Muslims to embed sustainable actions in their everyday lives, where they live, work, play, and pray. We bring incredible programming and projects to connect Muslim communities to the environmental narrative. This includes tree plantings, book and clothing swaps, as well as an ongoing monthly book club called People Planet Books. Recently, we were selected as a grant recipient from the Olive Tree Foundation for a Greening Canadian Moss program, as well as another initiative, our Canadian Climate Stories, a writing competition for Canadian youth. So if you're interested in learning more, getting involved, be sure to follow our social media channels. You can check us out on Enviro Muslims Canada, Enviro Muslims on Facebook and Twitter, and email us at enviromuslims@gmail.com. I'll put those all in after I'm done my environmental racism spiel. Okay,
awesome.
So today I will be building the narrative and the definition of environmental racism in 3 parts. The first is of our placement in this narrative. The second is the stories of displacement and struggle. And the final part is a message of solidarity and action. Now, who are we and where are we? Many in the Muslim community settled in so-called Canada come from immigrant background. Many have near histories of displacement, war, and lower qualities of life due to colonial historical circumstances. So we're settled here. Many have come to a new land. Now, this land is ridden to this day with colonial realities. We heard this from so many speakers before me, and that was all very wonderful to hear. We are on a land with laws brought about by the French and the British, a land with broken treaty agreements. The last residential school closed in 1996, a land with many murdered and missing Indigenous women. We're on a land living a quality life that was afforded through oppression and the eradication of cultures and the slow genocide of Indigenous peoples that does continue today. Now, the land I'm speaking to you from today is known as Edmonton, Treaty 6 territory. It is also known by its Cree name, Amiskwachie Waskahikan. And so many people have joined today from all over Ontario and different parts of Canada. I just want to dive a little bit more into the land acknowledgement that was already well done. I want to give you a small bit of history on the Mississaugas of the Credit. The Mississaugas of the Credit were at one point the Mississaugas of so-called Toronto, and they were pushed out of their land in 1847 after the British gained control of the area over time in 1760. And what is important to remember as I reflect on where I'm from right now, so Amiskwachie Waskahikan, or from people in so-called Mississauga or Toronto, the way we refer to the cities that we're from, the way in which we refer to where we are, and the histories of where we are, legitimizes certain states, gives power to those states whilst erasing others. Or sometimes it can be done in a way that's more collaborative, but most often there's a lot of erasure. Part 2. Allow me to tell you now the stories of displacement and struggle in the land we reside in so-called Canada. I have only been an observer and sometimes an ally in action. The stories I tell you will begin long ago and are deeply present today. Tragedy 1. In the late 1700s, large groups of Black settlers began to arrive in Nova Scotia. Many were former enslaved. A Black community was formed, Africville. The city of Halifax built many undesirable developments, such as a waste dump near that community. And in the 1960s, Halifax forced the displacement of this entire community to build industry. This is environmental racism. In the 60s, a paper pulp company decided to pour chemical waste into the English Wabigoon River system by an Indigenous community. It has been 60 years. The river system has not been cleaned up, and over 90% of residents of Grassy Narrows have mercury poisoning. This is environmental racism. Secwepemc Nation are protesting Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion near so-called Kamloops, British Columbia. Pipelines often mean man camps. Man camps, also known as pipeline labor camps, often result in increased violence of these workers towards Indigenous women. 4 Secwepemc women were arrested yesterday for performing ceremony on their traditional land in protest for their livelihoods and security. Mi'kma'ki in Nova Scotia are under attack. Non-Indigenous fishermen are attacking Mi'kmaq fishers for exercising their treaty right to fish for a moderate livelihood on the basis of so-called conservation. These are all realities of environmental racism. These atrocities and aggressions perpetuated by state, by angry white men, by the silence of neutral bodies, are happening coast to coast right now. Acts of environmental racism, we're in part 3 now, are deliberate and sometimes obscure acts. They can be words of racial discrimination in environmental policies, legislation. Environmental racism is largely systematic and is embedded into our governance and in our lives. Now, the message or the ask I bring to you today is for solidarity and action from the Muslim community. The same way in which we advocate for lands that we might come from, lands of ancestry, for the people of Kurdistan, the people of Palestine, the people of Congo, the people of Sudan, the people of Bangladesh, we need to show up for our Indigenous folks. We need to take the onus on ourselves to learn their deep histories, to engage with community events. We as settlers have a role to play in, 5-minute limit. We as settlers have a role to play in the long path ahead in reconciliation. So I'm going to leave you with this question. What intentions do you have to disrupt and dismantle colonialism beyond all the wonderful territory acknowledgements you have heard today? Thank you, Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Amina. Yeah, it's very difficult to stay on time. I feel like with in-person events, there's a little bit more leeway. But yeah, it was an amazing concept, and I haven't really heard about environment racism before, so that was very informative. My Voice Canada, as I said before, is working for youth. So if you would like to donate on our website, myvoicecanada.com, you get a free t-shirt for over $20 of donations. And Sister Narcus is holding it up right now. It's beautifully designed. And it's about our thing, the hashtag Minority Report. So also make sure that you check out our socials. Check out the socials that have been put onto the chat for Environment Muslims Canada, for the rest of our amazing panelists who have put so much for inputted so much for our discussions. And last but not least, we have a presentation from Yasmin Sayed. She does have an appointment, and so she's willing to stay over for us. And from what I know of her, she's an amazing spoken word artist. So let's put our hands together for everyone.
Big round of applause, people.
Our last contestant for today.
Okay, thank you so much, Malika. So yeah, my name is Yasmin Saeed. I'm 18 years old and I'm a first-year student at the University of Toronto. And kind of like what Malika said, I'm going to be reciting a spoken word poem that I made that is called Being Happy in a Perfect World. And it is about finding happiness in a world that lacks comfort. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm happy. I mean, it looks like it. 1,000 likes, 500 comments, and 25 shares. I mean, how could I not be? That's what I tell myself. That's what I force to tell myself. This highlight reel of what seems to be, when in reality, all we started to see was the signs, the posters, so that I can't breathe, this overthrow of truth, despair, and sadness slowly drowning the saturation of the make-believe. So was it really the truth? The reality? But in this perfect world, I'm happy. After all, that's what it looks like in the photos, videos, and streams, pretending as if we were in a dream, but when would we wake up? Silence to turn a blind eye, pressure to turn away, dismay, and pretend everything was okay. And now, who really has to pay? After all, our perfect world was now broken. This constant goose chase, running away from the horrors of the world to fabricate this life we wish to see, wish to feel, wish to have, holding it tight when it was never in our grasp. Because maybe, just maybe, if we would widen our smile, laugh hard enough, we would wake up from our dream for it to be the truth. Not having to turn to our phones for the comfort we wish to seek that this world had slowly drained, closed in this maze where you couldn't find X. Because here, X didn't mark the spot. X wouldn't be where you find the prize, because how could you expect to win at the place where you lost? But as long as we believed it, right? That was okay, right? Because the last time I checked, that's what we were doing all along. But maybe in this perfect world, I'm not happy. Putting on a smile for show and tell, but removing that mask until we stepped out of that circle, that little safe space. That area where we would show the things we have without anyone realizing that that smile was wiped long ago, because how could you be happy in a world that doesn't want to see you grow when your people start to get used and abused till there's nothing left but sorrow? But you see, here's the key. Happiness was never about you but me. Because the more you chase this world to give you something they don't think you deserve, the more you start to believe that it should never be earned. But because in this broken world, people maybe learn to be happy by not looking for the happiness in this world, but in themselves. So that instead of thinking this is a dream, it will actually be reality. And in this not so perfect world, we will finally all be happy. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Yassine.
Oh, that was amazing.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow, this is really
Should
tough
we run the poll
competition.
now? Should we run the poll now?
Yeah. So I'll give you guys I guess around like 30 seconds to consolidate all your choices. Think about it for a little bit. Choose wisely. There's a lot of money on the line, right? Yeah. So even if you are not chosen as a winner or top 3, whatever it is, we thank you very, very much for coming up and performing for us. Yeah, so the performers do not vote because you're just gonna vote for yourself. No, I'm kidding. But even if you're not voting, feel free to just sing other contestants' praises. Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that it's not easy coming up and presenting and performing and sharing your art. I know some of these pieces were very personal, and that's a tough thing that not a lot of people can do, right? So even if you don't win, please leave here feeling proud of yourself, feeling like you've accomplished something because you did. So yeah, please everybody vote as soon as possible.
Yeah, I just want to also recognize the talent. Like, I would never be able to come up and creatively, express everything that was talked about. Internalized racism, we have enviro racism, we have the concept of happiness, systematic racism, there is Farida, I think, that touched on being a woman, being Black, being a Muslim, like every hijabi, and it's all part of her identity. So how can she separate it? I think that was beautiful. And that's why we ask you to take notes, because even though voting is really important, we can each take something from this and from our panel as well.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say that whoever wins it, just because we're going to be adding up the votes that were sent to Cheyenne as well, we're going to email them their gift card based on what they won.
Yeah.
As long as we get your email, please make sure that we have the correct.
Yes, please. All the information. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are running towards the end of the event. So while you guys vote, I would just like to personally say that events like these are, of course, very necessary. And I appreciate the effort put in by all the members of the My Voice team to make something like this happen, right? It's a lot of work. Trust me, I've just seen the behind the scenes, and we are all very thankful for that. So, in times like these, even though it seems like there's a lot going against us, you still need community events. So yeah, it's great that we could have My Voice put on this wonderful thing. All right, so you guys are currently still voting. A couple of criteria to consider. Oh, wait, I think voting's done. I think it's done. Okay.
Drum roll!
And we have a winner. Round of applause for all the contestants. Everybody, hands. I need to see hands. Everybody, hands. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, Yasmin.
So we do have to count the other votes too, just to let you know. We have no idea.
Yeah, so we're not trying to do an Oscars moment here where it's like, oh, they didn't actually win. So just hold your excitement down slightly. Yeah, so once again, congratulations to the winner. Congratulations to the people who made top 3. And thank you everybody who competed. So I think, do we have time to do the Kahoot?
Yes, we'll do that. We'll do it. It's a short Kahoot. Please answer really quickly. You know, the fastest and the right answer is the one we win, and we have prizes for that too. So I'm just going to start it right away.
Let's go. I'm competing just so you guys know, because I'm trying to win some money.
Not cash.
Okay, where are we? There it is. And I am going to hit play. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody knows how to play Kahoot here? Kahoot.it. A separate device.
Six, 8, 2, 2, 8. All right. Y'all have some competition. Panelists, y'all can participate too if you want to.
Everybody can participate except me.
You know the answer.
I hope you guys realize, like, I'm here to win, right? So, you know, this is very much a competition.
Host
We have 24 people here, only 13 signed up. Are you guys not signing up or just taking your time?
What are you doing? She's texting people.
We will start at around 2:20, so we have like 1 more minute for people to sign up.
You don't need to make an account right now. You can just go on Kahoot.it, put in this pin on your phone. Okay, got everybody. I'm starting. Or not.
Almost 2:20. Couple seconds left, guys. Great prizes. Great prizes. Okay, here we go. Oh boy. Oh man. Okay, hold on a second. Oh no. Okay, man, Q coming with a quickness. All right. Oh.
Really, should have done your homework.
Yeah, I should have. Oh my god. And I was talking mad big too. Oh man. Oh, seriously? No. Ah. Okay. Oh, I'm getting washed. Oh man. Good lord. Oh no, I was wrong. Yo, it's just L after L. L after L. Okay. Iman Q. Okay. Is Iman Q a member of My Voice? I just need to verify that real quick, because oh my god.
That's tricky.
Oh my.
Name is
Yeah. Oh yes, okay.
Three of them are actually real.
Huh. Oh, seriously? These. I'm gonna try to say that.
Everybody should be able to take this.
Okay, boom. I just need to get on the scoreboard. I gotta at least.
First and only.
Let's go. Okay.
Iman, he is killing the game.
Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, Iman has fingers that are like fast.
The Q stands for quick. That's what's happening right now.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is like not a multi-answer. I don't know why it came up with multi-answer. Too many. Great.
Real took my
Oh, would you look at that? Would you- Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. The answer is Nineveh, guys.
Oh, great. Everybody knows this one.
That's neither a province nor is it small.
We should blame Sakina if you gave us that question.
Huh? Huh. The more you know.
I didn't know that was possible.
We're being arrogant.
Classist as well.
Okay, okay. We on the come up. Ah, wait, no. Oh. Oh, I thought I got that wrong. Okay.
God, the top three are like really.
I swear.
Okay, this one you can get, Jabril.
Oh. Oh my God. That was actually hilarious. Wow.
There's some people that are wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame them. That's not common knowledge. Oh man. Okay.
That's a trick question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a trick question.
What? The country.
Why is not a country?
Why is not a country?
Oh man. So, okay, I'm dumb. Wow. All right. I think it's E, right?
Yeah, I was guessing
Is it?
E.
Yeah.
50.
Okay, top five. Let's go. Oh jeez.
mathematics minus 1 point.
Math, please, math. Yes, okay.
Okay, let's see who wins. All of you put your email addresses down so I can send you the gift cards, the winners.
Oh, wow, okay.
Congrats!
Bavaria.
Bavaria?
Iman, I'm sure. Killing it.
Wow.
Put your
Congratulations.
email addresses down for yours.
Bree, you were literally like a tie.
Oh, man.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, everyone. That was great.
Thank you to Sakina who designed the game, right? It was her.
Okay, coming in clutch. All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that Kahoot. I didn't because I didn't win, but yeah, so this is an amazing event. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you guys for actually sticking with us, even though we ran overtime. It happens, you know. Once again, shout out to all the panelists. For those of you who are still here, thank you very much. I know some of you guys had to leave. But yeah, we appreciate you guys coming out nonetheless. And I believe I learned a lot. And I know, inshallah, hopefully most people learned a lot as well. So we have done the Kahoot. We have done the contest. I believe that brings us to the end of our event.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was really great. Thank you, Jibril. Thank you, Malaika, for the whole emceeing and carrying the weight of this event. Thank you to all the organizers, the players, the artists, the performers. This was amazing, alhamdulillah. Any last words that you want to say? Cheyenne, I think you're muted. I think you were saying something. And I will be sending out the emails to all the winners of both performers and Amazon. Inshallah.
Yep, and my cats are.
Great
All
job,
right.
guys.
Okay. Jazakallah everyone for coming.
Okay.
Oh, remember the t-shirts. Anyone who wants to purchase them, go on the thing and let me know what your size is. Go on PayPal. I've been posting the link. You can go on our website. There's a donate button on the footer. Anything on top of $20 donation, you get this t-shirt. But you need to send me your size. info@myvoicecanada.com. All right?
Yes.
And the shipping and handling is free in Canada.
Awesome. So yeah, this is the end of the event. Thank you to all the organizers, all the panelists. Thank you everybody who has came and joined us. Make sure that you take this information and inshallah try to apply it to your real lives. Try to spread it to your friends and family, your loved ones, benefit them, and inshallah for future events. If you liked it, let them know to come to the next one. Recommend it. Thank you so much, and assalamu alaikum everybody.
Welcome everybody.
Before we leave, if anyone's still here, if you want to know who the winners are, I can actually announce them.
Awesome.
Oh, cool.
So if you're here, first place, Onizish, second is Yasmin, and third is Frida. So
Wow.
great job, guys.
It was an Oscars moment. It was. You're good. Great job, everybody.
Presenters. And sorry about the timing. I know we said 2, but I think that we all benefited from the extra time. Congratulations, the winners. Sister Marcus will be contacting you. And yeah, amazing event, guys.
Okay. See ya. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. And great hosting.
Thanks.
Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.